The gun battle between troops and suspected militants erupted on Friday evening in Sainthamaruthu in Ampara, to the south of the town of Bataloa, site of one of the Easter Sunday blasts at luxury hotels and churches. A Sri Lankan soldier stands guard at the damaged St. Anthony's Church in Colombo, Sri Lanka. April 26, 2019. At deadly shootout in East Coast, the bodies of 15 people, including 6 children, were discovered at the site of a fierce overnight gun battle on the east coast of Sri Lanka, a military spokesman said on Saturday, 6 days after a rash of suicide bomber attacks that killed more than 250 people. The gun battle between troops and suspected militants erupted on Friday evening in Sainthamaruthu in Ampara, to the south of the town of Bataloa, site of one of the Easter Sunday blasts at luxury hotels and churches. The police and military had earlier said 4 gunmen and a civilian had been killed in the shootout. The 15 were found in the morning during clearance operations. Travel warnings. The U.S. State Department has ordered the departure of all school-age family members of U.S. government employees in kindergarten through 12th grade, it said in a statement, adding that it had also authorized non-emergency personnel to leave. Terrorists may attack with little or no warning, targeting tourist locations, transportation hubs, markets, shopping malls, government facilities, hotels, clubs, restaurants, places of worship, parks, major sporting and cultural events, educational institutions, airports, hospitals, and other public areas, it said. Shooting during police raid. Police have conducted raids in Ampara district of Eastern Province of Sri Lanka as part of the ongoing investigation into the Easter Sunday suicide bomb attacks, which killed over 250, a military spokesman said. Soldiers exchanged gunfire with suspects after attempting to raid a building in Sri Lanka's Eastern Province. Brigadier Sainthamaruthu said the gun battle happened in the coastal town of Sainthamaruthu, 325 kilometers (200 miles) from the capital, Colombo. During one search operation, authorities found a stock of explosives and other raw materials used to manufacture bombs. The raid took place in the town of Ampara, Sainthamaruthu near Bataloa in search of those responsible for the bombings. The search found explosives used to produce bombs, IS Daesh uniforms, curtains with IS Daesh logo, 150 gelignite sticks, 100,000 metal balls and a drone camera from a house in Sainthamaruthu, a spokesman said. No details of casualties from the raids were immediately available, but journalist Roel Raymond told TRT World a civilian was caught in the crossfire, without further elaborating. Nearly 10,000 soldiers were deployed across the Indian Ocean island state to carry out searches and provide security for religious centers, the military said on Friday. Sunday Masses cancelled in Sri Lanka. The Archbishop of Colombo said there will be no Sunday Masses until further notice after the Easter bombings in Sri Lanka. Cardinal Malcolm Ranjit made the comment during a news conference on Friday in the Sri Lankan capital. Ranjit appealed for financial support to rebuild the lives of affected people and reconstruct the churches targeted in the Daesh-claimed suicide bombings, which killed 253 people on Sunday. Countries warn travelers of more threats. Australia has warned travelers that terrorists are likely to carry out further attacks in Sri Lanka. Australia's threat level remained unchanged, advising travelers to reconsider your need to travel to Sri Lanka, one tier below the highest warning of "do not travel." The US has also warned Americans to avoid places of worship in Sri Lanka due to potential for more attacks. Britain advised its citizens against traveling to the island country. Germany issued similar warnings. Police hunt for suspects. Sri Lankan police are trying to track down suspects, especially those believed to be linked to the terror group that claimed responsibility for the attacks. At least 140 people believed linked to Daesh are being hunted by the police, President Maithripala Sirisena said on Friday. Saudi money may have gone to extreme organizations. PM Sri Lankan authorities are investigating the source of funding to terrorist organizations that may be operating in the country. Sri Lankan Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe said in an interview on Thursday, "Well, there has been money coming in from Saudi Arabia over the last 20-30 years to religious organizations. I don't know who are the agencies who sent it. I mean, Saudi Arabia or the Middle East has been the source of many of those funds, and some of it has gone into these extreme organizations," the Prime Minister told AP. He said the authorities are investigating. Mosques hold Friday prayers despite warnings. Some mosques in Sri Lanka held Friday prayers despite the potential for attacks after the Easter suicide bombings. At 12:10 p.m. local time, the call to prayer echoed through the Masjid as-Salam Juma Masjid Mosque in the capital Colombo. "We're sending a message to extremists that we will not be scared or deterred," said Rayaz Saleh, chairman of the Dua Tagaha Juma Mosque, "but the main reason we're here is because we want to say a special prayer for the victims of the church bombings," he added. Sri Lankan authorities had asked Muslims to pray at home rather than attend communal Friday prayers that are the most important of the week. Armed police stood guard outside mosques on Friday. Wanted radical leader died in hotel bombing. President, a local extremist group leader believed to have played a key role in Sri Lanka's deadly Easter bombings, led an attack against a Colombo hotel. The country's president confirmed on Friday, "What intelligence agencies have told me is that Zaran was killed during the Shangri-La attack." President Sirisena told reporters, referring to Zaran Hashim, leader of the local extremist group National Tawheed Jamaat. He added that Hashim led the attack against the high-end hotel and was accompanied by a second bomber, identified only as Ilan. He said the information came from military intelligence and was based in part on CCTV footage recovered from the scene. Hashim appeared in a video released by Daesh after it claimed the bombings, but his whereabouts after the blasts were not immediately clear. Security forces had been on a hunt for Hashim, believed to be around 40, after the government named the National Tawheed Jamaat as its prime suspect. Sri Lanka Police Chief resigns. Sri Lanka's top police official, Inspector General of Police Pujith Jayasundara, has resigned over failures that led to the deadly Easter bomb attacks, the country's president said Friday. The IGP has resigned. He has sent his resignation to the acting defense secretary. "I'll nominate a new IGP soon," President Sirisena said. Sirisena's nominee has to be confirmed by a constitutional council. The resignation comes after the country's top defense ministry official, Defense Secretary Hemasiri Fernanda, resigned on Thursday. Also on Friday, an official Sri Lanka police Twitter account was deleted after it misidentified a U.S. human rights activist as a suspected Sri Lankan serial bomber. Late Thursday, police posted the names and photos of 3 women and 2 men on Twitter that they said were at-large suspects in the Easter Sunday assault. One of the named was a U.S. activist, who quickly tweeted that she had been falsely identified. Sri Lankan police replied with an apology for the inconvenience. Sri Lankan PM Ranil Wickremesinghe says Saudi money may have gone to extreme organizations. pic.twitter.com/WWOABPOFKIA TRT World Now, at 12 now April 26, 2019 Sri Lanka attacks death toll around 250 to 260, not 359. Health officials. Death toll in Sri Lanka's Easter Day attack is around 100 fewer than the 359 originally thought, a top health official told Reuters on Thursday. It could be 250 or 260. "I can't exactly say. There are so many body parts and it is difficult to give a precise figure," Anil Jasingat, the Director General of Sri Lanka's Health Services, told Reuters in a phone interview. Ruin Wijewardene, Sri Lanka's Deputy Defence Minister, whose ministry is responsible for the island's police force, said the death toll had been revised down to 253 due to inaccurate figures provided by the country's morgues. "Unfortunately, the health ministry provided the earlier number to us," he said. scared Muslim refugees flee Sri Lankan homes over attack fears. Hundreds of Muslim refugees in western Sri Lanka have taken refuge in mosques and a police station after facing intimidation following the deadly Easter bombings, activists said on Thursday. The attacks have been condemned by leaders of the country's Muslim minority who have said mosques will not bury the bombers, and the community has been left in fear of a backlash. Scores of Ahmadi Muslims who settled in Negombo after fleeing persecution in their home countries have been thrown out of their accommodation by landlords, according to officials. Prime Minister Wickremesinghe said that security forces were trying to help the Ahmadis. Wickremesinghe said that some people had become suspicious of foreigners, not of Muslims per se. In the heat of the moment, a few have been attacked. Defense Secretary resigns. The office of Sri Lanka's president said the country's defense secretary has resigned after security forces failed to prevent the spate of bombings. The office issued a statement on Thursday saying that Hemasiri Fernando would continue to serve until his replacement has been appointed. Government misidentifies Muslim American activist as an attack suspect. Sri Lankan authorities released a list of names and photos of 6 suspects wanted in connection with the Easter Sunday attacks, but had to retract one of them due to a case of mistaken identity. Amara Majid is a Muslim American activist whose picture was erroneously placed on a suspect list next to the suspect's name, Fatima Kadia. This is obviously completely false, and frankly, considering that our communities are already greatly afflicted with issues of surveillance, I don't need more false accusations and scrutiny, Majid wrote on Twitter. All Sri Lanka Catholic Church services suspended. All of Sri Lanka's Catholic churches have been ordered to stay closed and suspend services until security improves after deadly Easter bombings, a senior priest told AFP on Thursday. On the advice of the security forces, we are keeping all churches closed, the priest said. There will be no public mass said until further notice. President calls for resignations of top security officials. Sri Lanka's president has asked for the resignations of the defense secretary and national police chief after security forces failed to take action preventing the attacks. It wasn't immediately clear who would be replacing them. 9 suicide bombers. Sri Lanka police on Wednesday said investigations confirmed there were 9 suicide bombers, of whom 8 have been identified. One of the 9 bombers was a woman, Deputy Defence Minister Wijewardene told reporters on Wednesday. More than 100 people have now been arrested in the country in connection with Easter Sunday blasts, Wijewardene said. Ongoing terrorist plotting. The United States had no prior knowledge of the Easter Sunday suicide bombing attacks on churches and hotels in Sri Lanka, but now believes there is ongoing terrorism plotting in the country. Washington's ambassador to Colombo said on Wednesday, "We had no prior knowledge of these attacks." Ambassador Elena Teplitz told reporters in Colombo, "We believe there are ongoing terrorist plots. Terrorists can strike without warning." Typical venues are large gatherings, public spaces. Death toll rises to 359 people. Police say the death toll in the Easter attacks in Sri Lanka has risen to 359 and more suspects have been arrested. Police spokesman Ruin Gunasekara also said on Wednesday morning that 18 suspects were arrested overnight, raising the total detained to 58. President vows security reorganization. Sri Lanka's president on Tuesday vowed a major shake-up of the military's top brass in the wake of the deadly Easter suicide bombings after the government admitted warnings were ignored. President Sirisena, who is also Defense and Law and Order Minister, said he will carry out a complete reorganization of the security forces and the police under his control. "I hope to make major changes in the leadership of the security forces in the next 24 hours, the president said in a nationwide address. The restructuring of the security forces and the police will be completed within a week. More militants still out there. PM Sri Lanka's Prime Minister warned there are more explosives and militants out there after Easter suicide bombings that killed over 320 people. Wickramasinghe made the comment on Tuesday at a news conference and said some officials will likely lose their jobs over intelligence lapses surrounding the attack. Wickramasinghe acknowledged there was a prior warning, and said India's embassy was eyed as a possible target. The toll from the coordinated bombings at churches, luxury hotels and other sites now stands at 321 dead and 500 wounded. He said a planned attack at a fourth hotel failed and that the leader of a local militant group blamed for the assault may have led the attacks and been killed. Meanwhile, Sirisena on Tuesday showed foreign diplomats pictures of suspected bombers and gave a briefing to diplomats based in Colombo after the Easter Sunday blasts. New Zealand. No intel linking Sri Lanka bombings. The Office of New Zealand's Prime Minister said she is aware of comments linking Sri Lanka's Easter bombings to the mosque attacks in Christchurch, but hasn't seen any intelligence upon which such an assessment might be based. The statement came on Tuesday after Sri Lanka's Minister of Defence, Wijewardene, made the claim to Parliament, without offering evidence. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern's office also added that it understood the Sri Lankan investigation into the attack is in its early stages. The Christchurch shootings killed 50 people in March. FBI assisting Sri Lanka authorities with probe of bomb attacks. The FBI is assisting Sri Lankan authorities with their investigation of the bomb attacks, a spokeswoman for the U.S. law enforcement agency said on Tuesday. The Washington Post earlier had reported that the FBI had offered expertise to test evidence and that analysts were scouring databases for information regarding the attacks. Daesh claims responsibility for Sri Lanka bombings. Daesh has claimed responsibility for coordinated bombings, the group's AMAQ propaganda agency said on Tuesday. 45 children killed in Sri Lanka attacks, and at least 45 children were among the more than 320 people killed in the suicide bomb attacks in Sri Lanka, the United Nations said Tuesday. The total now is 45 children who died, UNICEF spokesman Christophe Boulieric told reporters in Geneva. He stressed that others are wounded and are now fighting for their lives, meaning the toll among minors from the Sunday attacks could rise. The number wounded was close to 500. Retaliation for Christchurch's Sri Lanka's Easter Sunday bomb attacks were retaliation for a recent twin attack on mosques in New Zealand on March 15, a Sri Lankan official said on Tuesday, adding that two domestic militant groups were believed to be responsible. The initial investigation has revealed that this was in retaliation for the New Zealand mosque attack. Junior Minister for Defence Wijewardene told Parliament it was done by National Tawhid Jamaat along with JMI, he said, referring to another local group, Jamiyatul Minathu Ibrahim. Wijewardene made the comments without providing evidence or explaining where the information came from. Wijewardene told Parliament the government possessed information that the bombings were carried out by an Islamic fundamentalist group in response to the Christchurch attacks. He also blamed weakness within Sri Lanka's security apparatus for failing to prevent the 9 bombings. By now it has been established that the intelligence units were aware of this attack and a group of responsible people were informed about the impending attack, Wijewardene said. However, this information has been circulated among only a few officials. Security measures ramped up. Authorities in Sri Lanka further increased security measures on Tuesday after the Easter Sunday suicide bombings. Police issued orders that anyone parking a car on the street and leaving it unattended must put a note with their phone number on the windscreen. Postal officials meanwhile said they would no longer accept pre-wrapped parcels for mailing. Ignored warning raises questions. A warning shared with Sri Lankan security agencies on April 11 said a local group was planning a suicide terror attack against churches in Sri Lanka. Priyalal Dissanayake, the Deputy Inspector General of Police, signed the letter addressed to the directors of 4 Sri Lankan security agencies. He asked the 4 security directors to pay extra attention to the places and VIPs in their care. The intelligence report attached to his letter, called the group National Tawhid Jamaat (NTJ), said it was targeting some important churches in a suicide terrorist attack that was planned to take place shortly. The report named 6 individuals likely to be involved in the plot. Attackers had incendiary leader. The purported leader of the NTJ began posting videos online 3 years ago calling for non-Muslims to be eliminated, faith leaders said on Tuesday. Much remained unclear about how the little-known group carried out 6 large near-simultaneous suicide bombings striking churches and hotels. Some of the intelligence people saw his picture but they didn't take action, said N.M. Amin, the president of the Muslim Council of Sri Lanka. Syrian national detained. Sri Lankan police detained a Syrian national for questioning over the Easter Sunday attacks on churches and hotels, 3 government and military sources told Reuters on Tuesday. The Terrorist Investigation Division of the police arrested a Syrian national following the attacks for interrogation, a source said. 2 other officials with knowledge of the investigation confirmed the detention. He was arrested after the interrogation of local suspects, a second source said. Police arrest 40 suspects, up to 310 dead. Police spokesman Ruin Gunasekara said the death toll from Sunday's attacks has risen to 310, as a state of emergency took effect on Tuesday, giving the Sri Lankan military wartime powers. Police arrested 40 suspects, including the driver of a van allegedly used by the suicide bombers and the owner of a house where some of them lived. Sri Lankan authorities also plan to brief foreign diplomats and receive assistance from the FBI and other foreign intelligence gathering agencies after officials disclosed Monday that warnings had been received weeks ago of the possibility of an attack by a small but radical group blamed for the bloodshed. Day of mourning. Sri Lankans across the island nation began observing 3 minutes of silence early on Tuesday morning to pay tribute to the victims. National flags were lowered and people bowed their heads as the silence began at 03:00 GMT, 8:30 am a local time, the time the first of 6 attacks occurred on Sunday. In Negombo, mass burial started at a cemetery near St. Sebastian Church, one of the attack sites. FBI says it's aiding Sri Lanka investigation. The FBI said it's providing assistance in the investigation into the Easter bombings in Sri Lanka. An FBI spokeswoman confirmed the aid on Monday but did not elaborate on what specific help was being offered or provided. The FBI routinely helps foreign governments in investigating terror attacks outside the United States, including by providing agents on the ground or technical expertise. Military given sweeping powers after bombing. Sri Lanka's president gave the military sweeping police powers starting on Tuesday in the wake of the Easter bombings, while officials disclosed that intelligence agencies had warned weeks ago of the possibility of an attack by the extremist group blamed for the bloodshed. The military was given a wider berth to detain and arrest suspects, powers that were used during the Civil War but withdrawn when it ended. These powers were given to the military under a state of emergency that came into effect at 18:30 GMT on Monday. Wickremesinghe said he feared the massacre could unleash instability, and he vowed to vest all necessary powers with the defense forces to act against those responsible. Social media shutdown raises fears on free expression. Sri Lanka's decision to block social media following deadly suicide attacks highlights a growing distrust of online platforms, but critics said the move is likely to restrict the flow of important news and information as well as abusive content. The move comes amid growing frustration by governments around the world with internet platforms over the propagation of mass information and incitements of violence. According to the digital rights group NetBlocks, Sri Lanka blocked Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, YouTube, Viber, Snapchat and Facebook Messenger following the Easter bombings targeting churches and hotels. 39 foreign nationals among killed. A total of 39 foreign nationals, including 2 Turkish people, lost their lives in the terror attacks in Sri Lanka, local media reported. Turkey, Japan, the UK, Denmark, India, the Netherlands, China, Australia and Portugal are the countries that have confirmed casualties of the citizen. However, there is conflicting information from Sri Lanka government officials about how many foreigners died in the attacks. Tourism Minister John Amaratunga said 39 foreigners were killed, but the country's foreign ministry put the number of foreigners killed 31. The differing figures could not immediately be reconciled late Monday night. National Day of Mourning. Sri Lanka's president has declared April 23 a National Day of Mourning. President Sirissena's office announced the measure in a statement late Monday. The statement also said that Sirisena would meet with foreign diplomats to seek international assistance. It cited intelligence agencies' reports that international groups were involved with the Easter Sunday bombings in Sri Lanka. The statement did not provide more details about the groups. The statement also said the president instructed Sri Lanka's security forces to provide additional security at the nation's Catholic churches. PM not alerted to warning because a feud, ministerial rift between Sri Lanka's president and prime minister, which sparked a crisis last year, came under scrutiny, with questions over how the government handled a recent warning of an attack. The premier has been kept out of intelligence briefings since he fell out with the president, a government minister said, a day after the attacks. Police had been warned this month about a possible attack on churches by a little-known domestic extremist group, according to a document seen by Reuters. But Prime Minister Wickremesinghe had not been told of the report, dated April 11, that said a foreign intelligence agency had warned of attacks on churches by domestic militant group NTJ. Health Minister Ajith Senaratne told reporters. It was not immediately clear what action, if any, was taken in response to the tip-off. When we asked about the intelligence report, the Prime Minister was not aware of this, said Senaratne, who also briefed reporters on the deliberations of the cabinet. It was not clear if the President, Sirisena, was aware of the report, but the top security organization, the Security Council, reports to him, while the Prime Minister was no longer invited to council meetings because of the rift, Senaratne said. The President was out of the country when the bombers struck. His office declined to comment. Attacks carried out by 7 suicide bombers. A government investigator said on Monday that the coordinated Easter Sunday bombings that ripped through Sri Lankan churches and luxury hotels were carried out by 7 suicide bombers. The bombings, Sri Lanka's deadliest violence since a devastating civil war ended a decade ago on the island nation, killed at least 290 people with more than 500 wounded, police spokesman Ruwan Gunasekara said on Monday. Government says local radical group behind blasts say Sri Lankan government believes a local extremist group called the NTJ was behind the deadly suicide bomb attacks that killed nearly 300 people, government spokesman Rajitha Senaratne said on Monday. Senaratne, who is also a cabinet minister, added that the government was investigating whether the group had international support. We don't see that only a small organization in this country can do all that, he said. Not much is known about the NTJ, a group that came to prominence last December when its followers were accused of attacking Buddhist statues in Kagal district. The act outraged the country's majority Buddhist community. NTJ Secretary Abdul Razak has been arrested several times on charges of inciting religious unrest.